Today, I am sharing 3 secrets nobody tells you about podcasting success that you won't want to miss. Welcome to Empowered Endeavors, where business strategy and purpose come together to turn your passion into a platform and ideas into influence to create real impact. Hello, I am your host, Shauna Lee, best-selling author of So You're Divorced, So What? And business strategy consultant for executive thought leaders, purpose-driven entrepreneurs, and aspiring storytellers. Together, we are transforming burned out professionals into purpose-driven powerhouses. And if you are following along in my podcast series, like a book, you know last week I mentioned that we would be interviewing Sharon Seberg this week on community. And wouldn't you know it, life happened and we have rescheduled that. So stay tuned for that interview to come to you soon. Today, though, we are digging into these 3 secrets that nobody's talking about. So we're going to talk about why podcasting success isn't just about downloads and sponsorships. It is the key metric in most cases that people are tracking so that they can go after the initial goal, which is sponsorship. So the biggest mistake I see most podcasters make is that they jump into podcasting thinking it's going to be leading to, high dollar sponsorships and it will replace their full-time income. And what I would encourage you to do instead of tracking those 2 metrics, which in and of themselves are important, and I think those are lofty goals and amazing goals, I think that if we connect back to the why you started podcasting to begin with, whether it is to educate your audience or raise awareness for your mission, whatever it is that is your why behind starting the podcast, that is going to keep you connected to what will ultimately be your success metric. So today I wanted to address for all of you aspiring podcasters and also the current podcasters who have already got a show going, I want to encourage you to connect back to your why and remember what it is about your show that is driving connection, whether it is driving awareness, but really connecting back to that why is going to keep you focused on these 3 secrets about podcasting success. And, I wanted to start off by sharing an example with you of a story of a time in my podcasting career when I was heavily inundated with scheduling interviews. And if you're familiar with Podmatch, it is one of the recommendations I have for you in my Pod Launch program. It's also included in the toolkit, but Podmatch is an incredible service. I'll be sure to link that for you guys below as well. But it's a service that allows you to connect with people who want to be a guest on your show, as well as shows that you can be a guest on. And it is like a online dating service in that it is matching hosts and guests together. And the cool thing about that service is that over time, it starts to kind of learn you, like there's an algorithm in the background. So it is getting better and better at matching you with podcasts that are a good fit for you. And all of that to say, I very quickly found myself after just a few months of being engaged with Podmatch, I found myself in a situation where I had more people requesting to be on the show than I had time to even record and edit and publish those episodes. And so it was an amazing problem to have. And one of the things that I really concerned myself with in the beginning of podcasting was that I may not have enough people to talk to. Quickly, I realized that was a silly fear and I had more people than I could possibly connect with. However, all of this to say, one of these days, I had 4 interviews scheduled, which I will tell you 4 interviews in a single day is way too much. And so I had 4 interviews scheduled. I'll also tell you, I have some tips around how to manage your Calendly link and you can build in some kind of buffers for yourself so that it will limit how many interviews you do in a day. However, I did not know at the time that 4 was too many. And I thought, okay, this is amazing. I'm just going to talk to whoever wants to talk to me, and quickly realized it was too many. But on one of these days that I had 4 interviews scheduled, I was a little bit dreading the day. At the time, I was recording in my closet, which is great for acoustics. And it was an incredible, like, soundproof area for me to record in my home. However, it meant that I spent all day long in my closet, and it wasn't very comfortable, and it was very hot. And here was the amazing thing that happened. So I went into the first conversation and had an amazing connection with my first guest and thoroughly enjoyed the conversation that we had. And I came out to whoever was in my house at the time, whichever of my children was here. And I came out saying, oh my gosh, this was an incredible conversation. I can't wait to share it. This is so amazing. And then I kind of bounced my way back into the closet to talk to my next guest. And after each conversation that I had that day, I got more and more energized. I had more and more amazing connections that by the end of the day, I forgot I was sitting in my closet, and I was so jazzed and kind of built up. My battery had been recharged, because here's what I will share with you. I am on the personality test, I am equally extrovert and introvert. And I just barely eke over more extrovert than introvert. This means that both spending time with people and also spending time by myself are what energize me and kind of fuel my energy levels, right? So to fill my battery, I actually need to spend time with people. And so I was getting filled up just in the scheduled conversations. And that was an amazing way for me to spend a day. That is one of the hidden kind of success metrics that I have found from podcasting. And it's simply from finding ways to fuel me and energize me and to enjoy my time. So without further ado, let's jump into secret number 1. So the first secret I have for podcasting success is that your energy matters more than your equipment. So people are going to connect to your voice and your authenticity, not just sound quality. So you guys have heard me say this time and time again. You can start a podcast with just your phone, and you can absolutely invest in an amazing microphone and a great set of headphones, but it's not actually necessary. And what is more important than the type of equipment you're using or the environment that you're recording in is that you are connecting with your audience, that you are being authentically who you are. And that's not about sound quality. So finding ways to bring your full self to those conversations is important. And just like my example I shared with you, being able to fill my battery, so to speak, puts me at the best kind of peak performance I can. And it allows me to kind of show up as the best version of me in those conversations, whether it is coming directly to you solo one-on-one, or it is connecting with a guest who is on my show. So being able to connect to the authentic version of you, part of that is fueling your battery, filling your cup, so to speak. And when we can connect to that makes us feel confident and things we feel passionate about, those that type of energy that you bring to whatever topic you are talking about is going to make a bigger impact than merely conveying information or what it sounds like when you've recorded. So I love to remind myself that it's not about looking pretty for the camera or making sure that my environment is ideal. Sure, I put away the dog and I minimize noise, but at the end of the day, it matters more what we're talking about and the energy I bring to the conversation. And my passion around podcasting as a topic in this series matters more than me merely telling you which microphone you can purchase or not. And whether or not my editing is amazingly perfect or not is less important, right? So one of my favorite examples, and I share this in Pod Launch because the way I learned to podcast was I took Jenna Kutcher's, what does she call it? The Podcast Lab, I believe is what she calls her course. And this is a great example of a podcaster who had amazing success because of her energy and not expensive gear. Because what I will share with you is what she shares in that program. And that is that she started her podcast recording on her phone in her car. And I just always love this example because one, it shows us that your equipment is not the most important thing. And what you bring to the conversation and the energy you bring is the most important aspect of who you are. When you can align with yourself authentically, your audience will connect with you. And I loved Jenna Kutcher's program, but the reason I created my own Pod Launch program is because I found that she still was conveying all of the information. And I find sometimes with online courses, there's a kind of a sentiment or I don't know, there's a little bit of a myth, maybe. I'm not quite sure the word it is that I'm looking for, but it seems to me that a lot of people who've created online courses are looking at the total recording time as if that is the value add to kind of justify the information. And what I like to do is really simplify things. So especially in the world of podcasting, it can be super overwhelming and highly technical and way too complex. The options alone for hosting are wide and varied. And so what I like to do is simplify it and give you 1 to 2 options and provide my one recommendation so that you can get started. Because here's what I'll tell you. I tell you this all the time, actually, but you can always change your mind. Always, always change your mind. And so getting started is the hardest part and the stage that I see most people kind of stall the longest on. People wait and they gather their equipment and they feel unprepared and they feel like they need to do all of the research and all of the different hosting applications before they can pick the very perfect one. And what I'm going to tell you is just pick one and move forward, because as you start recording and editing and sharing your episodes, you are going to learn what is important to you. So you will learn more in the doing of your podcast than you will ever learn in the planning to do your podcast. So with that said, I love Jenna Kutcher as an example of a podcaster who grew because of her energy and not because of expensive gear. And I also love her as an example because she is what catapulted me into creating my own program to help people launch podcasts. Because what I learned in the doing of this show is that getting started doesn't have to take months. Getting started can happen in 30 days. And so I wanted to simplify what was necessary and required so people could get over that hump of getting started and then focus on secret number 2, which is consistency beats perfection. So when we get started, launch quickly, we can move into what is most critical for podcast success. And that is that you have to be consistent. So instead of planning and tweaking and concerning yourself with creating the absolute most perfect episode, done is better than perfect. An episode that is recorded and edited and launched will get you much further than the one you're still planning. And so it's all about showing up consistently in your podcast space. It is about showing up week after week or month after month, whatever your cadence is that you've decided for your show, and being consistent with showing up and providing value and providing what you've committed to provide to your audience so that you can grow and that momentum gets to start building. And so one of the things that I teach you in Pod Launch is how to build a sustainable schedule so that you can create that momentum, so that you can start focusing on what you're here to do, which is grow a loyal audience. So it's not always about the largest audience, but a loyal audience who is engaged with you is much more important. And being able to create a schedule that is sustainable, especially for those of us who are still working a 9 to 5, have very busy lives and responsibilities. It's important to be able to find a schedule that works into your real life. So being able to batch record, as an example, this is one of my favorite tips for people. And one of the things that I do more often than not, instead of recording an episode each week, I often will record 2 or 3 episodes in one sitting. And that allows me to have the content created and then edit in advance and schedule those episodes out. So it allows me to kind of schedule for the busier weeks. And when I know that we have lots of outside the norm appointments, whether that is appointments for my kids or hockey games or whatever the case may be, being able to kind of pre-schedule those episodes is helpful because, again, it's about consistency. It's about showing up week after week because I've committed to weekly episodes. My audience knows to expect that they will launch every Friday, which, by the way, I don't know that I have mentioned to you guys that in the rebranding of this podcast, when we moved from Start Again with Shauna Lee to Empowered Endeavors, I moved my publish day to Fridays. And it really was about finding what worked for my schedule more than anything, but being able to provide one more day in the week before I published the episode was important, but also I like the idea of an episode being fresh and available for my audience going into the weekend. So that's when people tend to have a little more free time, and wanted to encourage listening when it's convenient. So let's talk about secret number 3. Your podcast is a relationship. It's not about just creating content. And it's important for you to find ways. This is one of the other ways that you are going to find success in your podcast, is building in ways to engage with your audience. So instead of just a one-way, I don't know if you are listening from the very beginning of this show, but in the very beginning, I used to say how I felt as if I was talking to a black hole. I would record an episode, I would throw it out to be listened to, and there wasn't a whole lot of engagement coming back to me. There wasn't a lot of kind of two-way conversations happening. And that is another secret to podcasting success, is to build in ways to engage with your audience. So if you are using Spotify for creators, like my recommendation is, listen, it's a free hosting. It's a great way to get started. You can move over to the other ones that are kind of paid offers that provide you with a few more bells and whistles as you kind of grow and evolve your show. However, in Spotify for creators, but in that tool, they give you the ability to create polls, which you can also do in social media on Instagram stories, for example. It can be a great way to get some feedback on episodes. So if you want to just check in with your audience to see how it landed, how it didn't land, you can use polls as a way of engaging both in social media as well as in that particular hosting tool. It's a great way to create that two-way conversation so that you can build that community of listeners. And it's another really great way to build your email list. So one of the things that I recommend, so business strategy behind podcasting, is to always create a catch mechanism for your people. You want to build an email list, whether or not you are selling anything, you are running a business or not. Capturing emails is a very helpful way to engage with your audience. It allows you to know who they are, one, but be able to reach out to them when you have, as your show evolves and you have new events or you have new happenings. It's a great way to kind of boost listenership and build that engagement. And again, it's not just a one-way communication mechanism. It allows you to capture and receive those replies. And when you are building that engagement and you're connecting with your audience, it is going to lead to more growth down the road for the show. So it's going to lead to word of mouth recommendations. It's going to lead to your audience building beyond just the metrics of listenership. So beyond just how many downloads and whether or not I've created a sponsor for a particular episode, building that connection with your audience is what is going to lead to growth long term. And so those are my 3 secrets that most people are not talking about when it comes to podcasting. Your energy matters more than your equipment. Consistency always beats perfection. And your podcast is a relationship. It's not just content. So I am so excited that you guys are joining me for this podcast series. And my last little bit of encouragement for you is when things get overwhelming, because listen, they do. Podcasting can be a big undertaking. It doesn't have to be overwhelming, though. My recommendation is always to take bite-sized pieces. You've heard me say baby steps are better than no steps. So choose making progress over getting stuck or procrastinating or doing nothing. Just figure out what is your next best move to keep the momentum going. And that momentum will continue to build as you take action. So instead of being overwhelmed with technology, minimize it to one decision today and make another tomorrow. And that would be my last little tip for you on how to minimize the overwhelm and to get you closer to podcast success. So if you are ready to launch your podcast and you would like a clear plan and you would like my help, then I would recommend starting by downloading the Pod Launch Toolkit. It is the ultimate starter kit for beginners. You can find it at shaunalee.com/Pod Launch Toolkit. Pod Launch Toolkit. It is everything you need to start your podcast in under 30 days. I'm all about starting quickly, launching fast. And that link will also be in the show notes below and the description if you are watching this on YouTube. Now, if you will be sure to subscribe, you will get notified, but be sure that you are tuning in next week. We are going to talk about how to avoid 3 costly planning mistakes that most new podcasters make. So remember, your story matters. The world needs to hear it. So let's build something extraordinary together. Until next time.